There comes a moment in a man's life, usually sometime after he crosses that invisible line into his 60s, when something inside him shifts in a way that's so quiet, most people never even notice until it's already happened. For decades, he was the rock everyone leaned on, the first call in a crisis, the steady hand that held the family together through every storm. He showed up without question, answered the phone at midnight, carried burdens that would have broken other men, and did it all without a single complaint. And then one day, without any warning, without a fight or a formal goodbye, he's just gone. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally he has stepped so far back that you can barely reach him anymore. If you've ever sat up late at night wondering why the man you once knew so well has become a stranger, why he stopped answering, stopped caring, stopped trying, then I need you to stay with me because what I'm about to share will change the way you see everything. My name is Claire Morgan, and I've spent years studying the emotional patterns of men in their later stages of life. And I can tell you this with absolute certainty. When a senior man walks away, it is never sudden, and it is almost never cruel. It is the final chapter of a story that has been written across 50 or 60 years of disappointment, exhaustion, and quiet heartbreak. By the time a man reaches 60, he has lived through more letdowns than most people will experience in a lifetime. He has watched promises crumble, relationships crack under pressure, and people he loved deeply show him that loyalty has limits. When he was younger, he believed that hard work and patience could fix anything. He thought love was enough. He thought effort mattered. But after decades of pouring himself into people and situations that gave nothing back, he starts to see the truth. And once he sees it, he can't unsee it. That's when the shift happens. He stops explaining. He stops negotiating. He stops begging people to treat him with the respect he has always given them. He just quietly removes himself. And once you understand why he does this, you will never look at him or at aging the same way again. One of the deepest reasons men walk away in their later years is pure exhaustion. Not the kind you sleep off after a long week, but a bone-deep weariness that comes from carrying everyone else's weight for 40 years without anyone ever asking if he needed to rest. These men were raised to be providers, protectors, fixers, and silent sufferers. They were taught that showing emotion was weak, that asking for help was shameful, and that real strength meant shouldering every burden alone. So that's exactly what they did. They worked jobs they hated to pay bills that never stopped. They sacrificed their own dreams so their kids could chase theirs. They stayed in marriages that had gone cold because they believed commitment was sacred. And through it all, no one ever stopped to ask what they needed. After 60 years of being the foundation, something inside them finally cracks. They look back and realize that while they were holding everyone up, no one was holding them. Their pain was ignored, their sacrifices were expected, and their presence was only valued when it came with a favor attached. So they stop. Not out of bitterness, but out of survival. Walking away isn't revenge, it's relief. It's the first time in their entire lives they've chosen their own peace over someone else's comfort. And if that looks selfish to you, it's only because you've never had to give that much for that long. Another reason older men disconnect is that they stop believing people will change. When a man is young, he holds on to hope. He thinks that one more conversation, one more compromise, one more act of love will finally turn things around. But a man in his 60s has seen the same patterns repeat too many times to believe that anymore. He has forgiven the same betrayal a dozen times. He has heard the same apology with no behavior change to back it up. He has invested emotional energy into people who never intended to grow. At some point, he stops trying. Not because he's cold, but because he's wise. He realizes that you cannot build a future with someone who refuses to evolve. So when he sees the same disrespect, the same manipulation, the same selfishness show up again, he doesn't fight it. He doesn't lecture. He just walks away. To everyone else, it looks sudden, but to him, it was years in the making. He had been watching, waiting, and hoping. And when hope finally died, so did his willingness to stay. Many people mistake this for cruelty, but it's actually clarity. He's not punishing you. He's protecting himself. And after a lifetime of protecting everyone else, he's finally decided he deserves that too. There's also a powerful identity shift that happens around 60. For most of his life, a man's worth was tied to what he did. He was valued as a father, a worker, a provider, a problem solver. His entire identity was built on usefulness. But as he ages, he starts to ask a different question. What do I want? And for many men, the answer is simple. Peace. Not success. Not approval. Not even love if it comes with chaos. Just peace. And peace requires boundaries. It requires saying no. It requires removing anything and anyone that disturbs it. So he begins to cut ties, not because he hates people, but because he finally loves himself enough to stop tolerating what drains him. The arguments, the guilt trips, the constant demands, they all become noise he no longer wants in his life. This is why people are blindsided when a calm, dependable man suddenly becomes distant. They think he changed overnight. But the truth is, he's been changing quietly for years. He just reached the point where protecting his inner calm became more important than protecting your feelings. People also fail to realize that many men discover, often painfully, that they were loved for what they did, not who they were. As long as he was paying bills, fixing problems, or offering advice, he felt valued. But the moment he set a boundary or said no, the love started to fade. That realization is devastating. He begins to notice that people only call when they need something. Conversations are transactional. Gratitude is rare. And the moment he stops being useful, he stops being wanted. Once a man sees that pattern, he can never go back to pretending it doesn't exist. He doesn't yell about it. He doesn't demand appreciation. He just quietly exits. Because he refuses to spend his final years being valued like a tool instead of a human being. Respect also becomes non-negotiable. A younger man might tolerate being dismissed, interrupted, or insulted because he's afraid of losing the relationship. But an older man knows that losing your dignity is far worse than losing company. If someone repeatedly disrespects him, he doesn't give 100 chances anymore. He just leaves. Not to hurt them, but to honor himself. He has learned that how people treat you is who they are, and no amount of patience will change that. So he chooses peace over pride and solitude over disrespect. Here's the truth most people miss. Senior men don't walk away because they've given up on love. They walk away because they've finally learned to love themselves. After decades of putting everyone else first, they've decided they matter too. They're not bitter. They're boundary strong. They're not heartless. They're just done being heartbroken. And if the people they leave behind took the time to understand that, maybe fewer men would feel the need to disappear in the first place. If this resonated with you, share it. Because somewhere, someone is wondering why the man they love went silent. And maybe now, they'll understand.